Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. My name is Jackson Ford, and at the time this story began, I was 56 years old. Life was not just good, it was nearly perfect. I was married to the love of my life, Emma, and together we had raised two wonderful children who had grown into adults we could be deeply proud of. My career was fulfilling and well-paying, allowing me to live comfortably and without regrets. It felt as though I had everything a man could ever wish for. But life, as I would learn, has a way of turning everything upside down without warning. The unraveling started on an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday night. That evening, I stayed at the office a bit later than usual, not so late that it would worry Emma, but enough to avoid the chaos of rush-hour traffic. The day had been uneventful, and as it wound down, I stopped to pick up Chinese takeout on my way home. Pulling into the garage, I parked, closed the door with the remote, and gathered my briefcase along with the food. For a moment, I felt an almost primal satisfaction, as though I were a modern-day hunter returning with sustenance for his family. But as soon as I stepped inside, something felt off. Emma's car wasn't in the garage. It wasn't unusual for her to run an errand, so I didn't think much of it. I set the takeout on the kitchen table, hoping it would stay warm until she got back. If she took too long, we could always reheat it. Following my usual routine, I headed upstairs to change into more comfortable clothes. After about 10 minutes, I came back down and called out, "Emma? Are you here?" Silence greeted me. I frowned, puzzled but not yet alarmed. Where could she be? I wondered. Maybe she had left me a note. Remaining calm, I walked into the living room and glanced around. That's when I saw it, a single piece of paper lying on the coffee table. The note wasn't what I expected. In fact, it was something I never could have imagined. The words froze me in place. "Dear Jackson, I'm sorry to leave like this, but someone needs me. I got a call today, the kind you can't ignore. I hate doing this to you, but I had no other choice. Please know that I love you more than anything. I'll come back as soon as I can. Everything we've built together means the world to me, and I hope to return to it soon. Don't worry about me. I'll be okay. Yours always, Emma." Next to the note was her cell phone. I stood there, stunned, the note trembling in my hands. "Someone needs me," she had written. But who? And why was it so urgent that she couldn't tell me anything more? Why would she leave without explaining? And why, of all things, would she leave her phone behind? At first, confusion clouded my thoughts. The message was too vague to make sense. As the words repeated in my mind, panic began to seep in. Where could she have gone? What could possibly compel her to abandon everything on such short notice? Why didn't she confide in me? I reread the note over and over, hoping to uncover some hidden clue. There were none. Soon, confusion gave way to fear, and then to anger. How could she do this? How could she leave me with nothing but cryptic reassurances and a promise to come back soon? I couldn't shake the unsettling question of her phone. Had she forgotten it? Or had she deliberately left it behind? If it was intentional, what did that mean? I started pacing the living room, my emotions spiraling. "Someone needs me," she had written. Who? What kind of call could she not ignore? It wasn't as if Emma had some high-stakes career that demanded such secrecy. She wasn't a spy or a brain surgeon. She was Emma, my Emma, the love of my life. Where was she? Anger simmered, but underneath it lay the truth. I was terrified. Something had pulled her away, something urgent, something she believed I couldn't be part of. But what? And how could I find her? I sat down, still clutching the note as the food on the table grew cold. Outside, Daylight slipped away, and the shadows of evening crept in. I couldn't just sit and wait. I had to act. Picking up the phone, I started making calls. First, I tried her sister. Then I reached out to our closest friends. Finally, I called our children. One by one, I asked if anyone knew where she might be or why she had left. No one had any answers, or if they did, they weren't telling me. Worst of all, my calls only succeeded in alarming our kids, adding their worry to my own. By the end of the night, I was no closer to understanding than when I had first read the note. I sat in the dimly lit living room, staring at her words, as the reality of her absence settled over me like an unshakable weight. I tried my best to assure everyone that things were under control, but my reassurances were flimsy at best. I quickly ended each conversation, promising updates, all while wrestling with my own frustration. Inside, I was a mess, casting blame on her for upsetting the children, even though I knew I shared the fault. Picking up the note again, I read the words that refused to leave my mind. I cherish the life we built, and I hope to return when I can. Those weren't the words of someone planning to come back in mere hours, or even days. Despite my attempts to stay calm, panic started to creep in. I kept telling myself I was overthinking, but doubt was setting in fast. My first call was to the hospital. No sign of her there. Next, I contacted the police, only to hear that a missing persons report couldn't be filed for 48 hours unless the missing individual was a child. Briefly, I considered bending the truth, but how could I convincingly describe a 49-year-old woman, even one as youthful and petite as her, as a child? Feeling defeated, I thanked them and ended the call. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me. I tried to eat, but couldn't stomach the food, so I packed it away in the fridge. The evening stretched on as I sat in the dim living room, hoping she'd walk through the door. She never did. Around 2 a.m., drained, I trudged upstairs and collapsed into a restless sleep. When morning came, her side of the bed was still untouched and cold. The stark reminder of her absence hit me like a tidal wave all over again. I lay in bed, paralyzed by uncertainty, before forcing myself to call my workplace and inform them I wouldn't be coming in. My unexplained absence sparked concern, leading to a flurry of calls from coworkers checking in, offering help, or seeking advice on work-related matters. Oddly, those brief exchanges distracted me momentarily from the turmoil in my mind. Next, I contacted her office. They told me she had called in and taken the day off. Their voices didn't hint at deception, though a sliver of paranoia had me doubting them. Over the following days, I visited her workplace in person, hoping that face-to-face interactions might yield more information. But they were just as clueless as I was. All I learned was that she had left some time on Tuesday, though I hadn't realized her absence until that evening. The 48-hour rule from the police left me powerless. By Friday morning, I stood in the police station, determined to file a missing persons report. I handed them the note she left, and they asked if this was something she had done before. Frustration bubbled over, and I snapped at them. A misstep when dealing with law enforcement. They warned me to calm down or face consequences. Choking back my irritation, I sat in silence as they finished the paperwork. One officer speculated aloud that in situations like this, it often involved a secret affair. "You might hear from her soon, maybe even divorce papers," he added with a casual cruelty. I wanted to lash out, but held back, muttering a sarcastic thanks before walking away. Their duty to protect and serve felt like a hollow promise. Back at home, I sank into a chair, weighed down by stress and the sting of helplessness. With no new leads, I resorted to calling friends and family, this time leaving the kids out of it. But they reached out to me anyway, forcing me into lies. I assured them that their mother was fine, capable, and handling things in her own way. Yet deep inside, I knew I was betraying them with these empty reassurances. As a father, I felt shame for lying to my children. But what else could I say? How could I admit I had no clue if she was safe or in danger? My initial calls on Tuesday had set off a cascade of concern. By Wednesday, questions started trickling in, tentative at first, but becoming more insistent by Thursday. Everyone wanted to know what steps I was taking to find her. By Friday, concern morphed into subtle accusations. The calls came relentlessly, and Saturday brought an onslaught of visitors. They arrived with kind words and offers of support, but the questions inevitably followed. Was your marriage in trouble? Were you two fighting? Was she unhappy? Each question felt like a wound, but none hurt more than when her mother asked, "Are you sure you don't know where she is?" The mounting suspicion from those closest to me was nearly unbearable. For the first time in all the years I had known my mother-in-law, I lost my cool. My voice was sharp, louder than intended, as I challenged her. "What are you even implying, Margaret? Are you accusing me of something? Do you seriously think I would fabricate this?" She hesitated, struggling to respond. "No, Jackson, that's not what I'm saying. It's just what, Margaret? Say it." My frustration boiled over. Her eyes met mine, her expression fierce and unforgettable. Finally, she said, "It's just that she's never done anything like this before." Her words stung, but I forced myself to remain composed. Taking a deep breath, I replied with as much control as I could muster. "Do you think I don't know that?" Margaret was visibly shaken, trembling as her husband, Michael, stepped in. His voice was steady, but tinged with unease. "Jackson, we understand you're doing your best. Maybe if you walk us through everything again, we can figure this out together." I nodded, the weight of the situation settling heavily between us. We sat in silence for a few moments before I recounted everything I knew, which, admittedly, wasn't much. The truth was, I had no answers. I shared the cryptic note we'd found. Their expressions were a mix of worry and confusion. The accusatory tone of the earlier conversation softened as the gravity of the situation took hold. For the next hour, the three of us explored every possibility, trying in vain to make sense of Emma's sudden disappearance. Tears flowed freely as we grappled with the terrifying reality. We had no leads, no clues, nothing to explain why she was gone. Margaret and Michael stayed with me through the morning as I pieced together a simple lunch, though none of us had much appetite. The doorbell rang repeatedly, neighbors, friends, and acquaintances arriving with food, drinks, and a barrage of questions. Some wanted to hear the story from me directly, while others came simply to offer support. I told the story over and over until exhaustion rendered me mute. At that point, Margaret and Michael took the reins. To their credit, they redirected attention away from me, emphasizing how committed I was to finding Emma. Despite the lingering doubts that some seemed to harbor, I began to feel less alone. The community's concern and willingness to help buoyed me, even as a gnawing suspicion grew within me. Someone out there knew more than they were letting on. Weeks passed with no breakthroughs. A handful of supporters shared vague theories with the authorities, but none led anywhere concrete. The police had Emma's car, its make, model, and license plate, flagged in their system, hoping it might surface in a theft report. Whenever I suggested that locating her car might lead to answers, people exchanged wary glances as if they thought I was clinging to false hope. I knew what they weren't saying aloud. They believed Emma had left of her own accord and doubted she'd want to return, even if she were found. I tried returning to work, but I was a shell of myself. Colleagues urged me to take care of myself and go home, but being home was no better. My days became a blur of phone calls, aimless drives in search of her car, and unannounced visits to friends' houses on the faint chance she might be hiding there, though I couldn't imagine why she would be. Eventually, desperation led me to consult a lawyer, who referred me to a private investigator. The police, while not outright objecting, expressed reservations. Private investigators can sometimes disrupt official investigations, they warned. I asked bluntly, "What have you found so far?" Their silence spoke volumes. Frustrated, I pressed, "If you're coming up empty, how could a private investigator interfere with that?" They didn't appreciate my tone, but couldn't refute my point. The investigator was expensive, and the results were disheartening. Despite exhaustive efforts, he uncovered nothing beyond what the police already had: a void of leads. 2 weeks after Emma's disappearance, my routine hadn't changed. I made countless phone calls, roamed aimlessly in my car, and obsessively monitored the news. Then, I began diving into her digital footprint, social media accounts, credit card transactions, and our shared bank accounts. For 2 weeks, there had been no activity, and then, out of nowhere, ATM withdrawals appeared, 200 miles away. I alerted the police immediately. This lead finally grabbed their attention. Within 30 minutes, 2 detectives arrived at my door. They launched into another round of questions, and I could see it in their eyes, the flicker of doubt returning, reigniting suspicions I had desperately hoped were behind us. After taking a moment to steady myself, I locked eyes with them and declared firmly, though my voice trembled just beneath the surface of control, "No, I wasn't there, and I didn't take that car. I've spent my time in the city, calling every friend I know, driving endlessly in search of her car, doing more than any of you have even attempted. Now that you finally have a lead, go do your job." The animosity between us was mutual and unmistakable. After enduring 30 grueling minutes of superficial reassurances laced with veiled accusations, they finally departed. To their credit, they did pass the details about Emma and her missing vehicle to the authorities in the town I'd mentioned. 2 days later, Emma's car was discovered abandoned in a hospital parking lot. The local police contacted me and delivered a pointed message: "Stay out of it. Let us handle the investigation." I was having none of it. "Not a chance," I shot back before jumping into my car and speeding toward the scene. 3 nerve-wracking hours later, I pulled into the parking lot. Spotting Emma's car took only a few minutes, though it felt like an eternity. Nearby, in an unmarked car that screamed "undercover," I noticed 2 men in suits. Without hesitation, I parked and approached them. Flashing my driver's license, I demanded, "Show me your badges." They exchanged irritated glances but complied. After confirming their credentials, I crouched down to press them for information. They admitted they had secured the car and assured me no one had approached it since their arrival. When I mentioned my intent to check with the hospital staff about my wife, they dismissed the idea, claiming they'd already tried. Feigning gratitude, I responded with an overly polite, "Thanks so much," before heading inside to ask for myself. My patience was wearing thin, and I was in no mood for diplomacy. At the reception desk, the clerk informed me there was no record of my wife's name or the car. Frustrated and unwilling to leave, I decided to join the police in their stakeout. To their surprise, I asked if I could sit in the back seat of their car. Reluctantly, they agreed. Over the next hour, I vented my frustrations and shared the sparse details I knew. When their shift ended, they allowed me to take over, but left strict instructions. "If anyone approaches the car, whether walking out of the hospital or driving up, don't engage. Just call us immediately. No following, no talking, no action at all. Just report." "Understood?" one of them emphasized. For once, I complied. Understood. I returned to my car, settling in to keep a close watch on Emma's vehicle. Hours passed slowly, interrupted only by a mad dash to the hospital for the quickest bathroom break of my life. I was back in my car, pants barely fastened, within moments. Then, it happened. About an hour later, a woman approached Emma's car. My breath caught. It was her, Emma. My heart pounded as I watched her open the door, retrieve something small, and head back toward the hospital. Careful to remain undetected, I followed at a safe distance, my mind racing with questions. Instinct warned me to keep out of sight. If Emma realized I was there, I feared losing my chance for answers. I trailed her into the hospital, maintaining a distance of about 20 meters. She entered an elevator, and I noted it stopped on the 3rd floor. Following cautiously, I soon found myself peering into a room where Emma sat beside a man's hospital bed, holding his hand. He appeared unconscious or asleep. I cleared my throat loudly. Emma turned, saw me standing in the doorway, and went pale before collapsing to the floor. Furious and confused, I immediately called for a nurse, who rushed in to help revive her. While the nurse tended to Emma, I shifted my focus to the man in the bed. His face was unfamiliar, a complete stranger. My confusion only deepened as I stood there, waiting for Emma to wake and explain everything. He wasn't a friend, nor family, just a man. Yet to Emma, his presence carried a weight greater than her marriage, her relatives, or even me. For every answer uncovered, a new, more confounding question emerged. While the nurse helped Emma up from the floor, I took the opportunity to notify the local detectives that I had found my wife. They advised us to stay put and promised to arrive shortly. After giving them our room number, I ended the call, the gravity of the moment pressing heavily upon me. My life had veered into a realm of complications I could never have foreseen. Standing there, staring at the man lying unconscious on the bed, a coldness replaced the fear that had gripped me before. When Emma composed herself enough to stand, she was teetering on the edge of hysteria. I tried to ask her the questions burning in my mind, calm but insistent. Why, Emma? Who is this man? Why did you vanish? Why didn't you let anyone know you were safe? What on earth is happening? Each time I thought she might answer, she dropped her head, her words drowned by fresh sobs. As my patience wore thinner with every passing moment, the detectives arrived. They swiftly took over, asking me to step aside while they started their investigation. One detective pulled me into the hallway and began firing off questions. I told them the truth. I had seen Emma get into a car, followed her to the hospital, and discovered her in this room. I reassured them that while I had confronted her, I had done no harm. But the moment they learned Emma had collapsed on the floor, their questioning turned more pointed, more intense. Meanwhile, the other detective remained inside, talking with Emma. Eventually, I seemed to convince them of my innocence. Or perhaps Emma did. Either way, they asked me to leave. I moved toward the door but paused, turning to face her. If I walk out now, I'm filing for divorce. Do you understand? My words shattered whatever calm Emma had left. She begged me to stay, her voice breaking with desperation. Turning to the detective, I met his gaze and said firmly, "I'm not leaving until I have answers." After some deliberation, they allowed me back inside. I approached Emma cautiously, trying to contain the anger roiling within me. Speaking slowly and evenly, I began to press her for the truth. Her responses were halting and incomplete, every answer steeped in ambiguity and raising more questions than it resolved. Eventually, she revealed the man's identity, her high school sweetheart, her first love. He was dying, she explained, and he had no one else. Her words were heavy with unspoken meaning, leaving me to piece together the rest. How did you manage for 2 weeks without using your credit cards? I asked, my voice tight. After a long silence, she finally admitted, I stayed at his house. So you know where he lives? I pressed further. Yes, she whispered faintly. And you have a key? Her nod was barely perceptible. My questions grew sharper, my suspicions seeping into my tone. How long have you had a key to his house? Emma didn't answer, merely shrugged and kept her eyes fixed on the floor. The accusation I was about to make felt like stepping off a cliff, knowing it might destroy everything if I was wrong. But the weight of 2 weeks of silence and evasion pushed me past the point of caution. How long has this been going on, Emma? I demanded, my voice cutting through the tension. She neither confirmed nor denied it. Her silence struck me harder than any words could have. My emotions halted, frozen under the strain of too much unanswered pain. I knew more questions would come, along with more hurt, but for now, I stopped pressing. Finally, I said, Fine. Then take me there. Show me where he lives. Her face drained of color, panic flickering in her eyes. After what felt like an eternity, she gave a reluctant nod. Grabbing her coat, she followed me out of the room. I'll drive, I told her flatly, and I'll bring you back. Emma looked surprised, but offered no resistance. By this point, the detectives seemed to consider the matter too personal to involve themselves any further. As we drove in silence, I braced myself for what lay ahead. Whatever truth awaited me at that house, I knew there would be no turning back once I crossed its threshold. With a stern warning against any reckless actions, they left. Emma stayed mostly silent during the drive, only breaking her silence to provide directions when absolutely necessary. At one point, she murmured under her breath, I heard they might charge us for wasting police resources. The temptation to ask, who's this we you're talking about, flickered through my mind, but I swallowed the retort. My chest tightened, each beat of my heart a painful reminder of the tension boiling inside me. When we finally turned into the townhouse driveway, an overwhelming sense of dread settled over me. Answers awaited inside. Answers to the endless questions tormenting my thoughts. Emma unlocked the door, and as we stepped into the living room, the sight hit me like a sucker punch. Scattered near the couch were my wife's shoes. Draped over a chair was her favorite scarf. Every detail felt like a stab to the heart. As if drawn by an invisible force, I drifted down the hallway, my mind racing. Emma's voice broke the spell, sharp and pleading. Jackson, don't! Please, don't go in there! Her words, meant to stop me, only spurred me forward. The master bedroom door creaked open to reveal disarray. Clothes, Emma's clothes, were haphazardly strewn across the bed and chair. Her makeup and personal items littered the dresser. The final piece of the puzzle came into view when I stepped toward the closet. Hanging among the clothes was a blue dress I recognized immediately. It was supposed to be in her wardrobe at home. But this wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate double. Then there were the shoes, her exact size and style, things she hadn't packed for our trip, but had clearly stashed here. The realization hit with brutal clarity. This wasn't a casual hideaway. It was a carefully maintained secret. A place for dinners, dancing, intimacy, stolen nights. The room was a silent witness to it all. If I dared to open a drawer, I knew I'd find more proof. Her personal items, physical evidence of a life compartmentalized and hidden from me. Feeling hollow, I stumbled back to the living room, where Emma sat on the edge of a chair, her gaze fixed on the floor. So, I began, my voice weighted with the gravity of the moment. Is there anything you want to tell me? She didn't look up, only shaking her head in a silent refusal. How long, Emma? I pressed, my patience fraying. This isn't some innocent little arrangement. How long has it been going on? She shrugged faintly, an empty gesture meant to evade. But her expression betrayed her guilt. I tried again. Who is he? She hesitated, the silence stretching unbearably before she finally spoke in a low voice. I knew him before you. We were together in high school. Whether she meant high school or college didn't matter. It was ancient history. How long have you been seeing him behind my back? My voice was edged with disbelief. Her head jerked up, defensive now, but she couldn't deny the truth. After a long pause, she admitted, We reconnected 7 years ago. At first, it was just casual, lunch, maybe dinner. Then one night, when you were out of town, we went dancing. Her voice faltered as if afraid to continue. It was a year later when She trailed off, unable to finish. When you slept with him, I said flatly, completing the sentence for her. She nodded, her head bowing under the weight of the admission. So, you've been sleeping with him for 6 years, I said, my disbelief tinged with bitterness. How did you manage it? Here? Or did you bring him to our home? Emma's head shot up, alarmed. Never, she said quickly. I never brought him to our house. I wouldn't do that to you. My jaw clenched, my anger simmering beneath the surface. So, you'll betray me here, but not in our house. Well, that's just great, Emma. I'm so glad you've drawn that line. My sarcasm was razor sharp, cutting through her weak defenses. She flinched, but she couldn't deny the truth. After a prolonged silence, she finally spoke, her voice trembling. I never stopped loving you, she said. He never took anything from you, I swear. It was just a few nights, here and there. I stayed with you. I never left. Her words, tired excuses from the familiar script of infidelity, left me cold. The ache in my chest deepened as I stared at her, each lie and betrayal a fresh wound. You say he didn't take anything, but you're wrong, I said, my tone cutting through her defenses. He took everything. He took your honesty, your loyalty. You saved part of your heart for him while pretending it was all mine. Don't stand there and tell me he didn't take something. He took pieces of you that I'll never get back. Tears streamed down her face, but they offered me no solace. I stood there, unmoving, watching her unravel, as my own heart crumbled into irreparable pieces. I had uncovered everything I needed to know. A brief, destructive urge bubbled up inside me, to wreck his place, to obliterate every trace of his existence. But I knew he would never set foot in that house again. In the end, I chose to leave it all behind. Let's go, Emma, I said softly. I'll take you back to him. Fresh tears welled in her eyes, but my heart was too shattered to offer her comfort. The drive to the hospital was steeped in silence. When we arrived, she turned to me, her gaze imploring. Jackson, she whispered, her voice trembling. Just give me time. He's all alone. I can't let him go like this. Her voice cracked as she continued. I'll come home soon. We'll fix this. Please, believe me. I love you. I didn't respond. I simply nodded and told her he was waiting. Deep down, she must have known. It was over. I drove the 4 hours back home, though I barely registered the journey. The road passed in a haze. My mind was consumed with the wreckage of my life. 2 weeks of constant tension and fragile hope had left me drained. Friends and family urged me to stay strong, to believe things could be repaired, but the truth was undeniable. She had been with him the entire time. Exhausted in every possible way, I stumbled into the house and sank into my old chair, letting time blur until the piercing ring of the phone jolted me back to reality. It was her parents. They asked where I'd been and if I had discovered anything. That's when the weight of it all hit me. I had driven 200 miles without telling a soul. For a fleeting moment, I considered shielding Emma from the consequences, but the last fragments of love I had for her had been consumed by betrayal. I told Michael and Margaret everything. At first, they resisted, unable to accept what I was saying, but the details of the townhouse and its damning evidence left no room for doubt. Not that it mattered. My marriage was already dead. There was no deliberation needed. The truth emerged from somewhere deep inside me, raw and unfiltered. Emma and I were finished. She loved someone else, and I wasn't a man who could share. Worse than the affair itself was the calculated deceit, the years of lies, and the elaborate double life she had built. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was intentional, sustained betrayal, and I couldn't forgive it. I reached out to her friends to share the news, ensuring I remained calm but withholding nothing. I didn't soften the blow or protect her from the fallout. Then came the hardest task of all, calling our children. I tried to be as gentle as I could, explaining that I had found their mother and that she was with her dying lover. They resisted, grasping at disbelief. When they pressed for evidence, I mentioned the townhouse. They asked if I could forgive her, and I gave an honest answer. Maybe someday, but I'll never trust her again. I apologized, then told them I would be filing for divorce. I asked them not to contact her yet, explaining that she needed time to be with him and that their rushing back wouldn't change anything. They argued at first, but eventually understood. 2 weeks later, her lover passed away. Emma returned home, but I wasn't there. A week after her return, the divorce papers were delivered. I hadn't disappeared or fled. I had simply moved on, settling into a new apartment and a new chapter of life. I stayed nearby so the kids could see both of us. Emma, however, wasn't ready to let go. She visited me repeatedly, at my office, my apartment, swinging between begging and threatening. None of it mattered. My decision was final. Her tears, pleas, and anger couldn't erase the pain of 6 years of betrayal. In reality, it had been 7 years, if you counted every secret lunch, every stolen moment, every lie. In the end, it wasn't just the infidelity that destroyed us. It was her ability to lie so easily, so convincingly, while looking me in the eye. That revealed something I couldn't ignore. She hadn't seen me the way I saw her in a long time. Now, 2 years after the divorce was finalized, I can see it all with clarity. Our marriage didn't end in a single dramatic moment. It was the slow, relentless erosion of trust, and once that was gone, there was no path back. Trust, once shattered, cannot be rebuilt. I don't pry, but the kids freely share that their mother lives a straightforward life. She goes directly from work to home. They're convinced she doesn't have any other stops along the way. It's painful to see her carrying such a heavy, emotional burden, yet there's nothing I can do to lighten it. Even now, I'm unsure if she grieves for the first love she lost or laments the marriage she betrayed. Honestly, I'm not exactly thriving myself. I'm far from fully healed, though the sting has started to dull. I haven't ventured into dating yet, but I've started to notice other women and suspect I might take that step someday. Trust, however, feels like an unattainable concept right now. I can't imagine extending it beyond professional interactions in the foreseeable future. I don't think I'll ever fully understand why she chose to betray me, what she felt was lacking, what I failed to give her, or how she rationalized her actions. Sure, I could confront her and ask, but what would be the point? Her decision was made, and by then, she seemed to have come to terms with it, or at least convinced herself that she had. I've never confided the whole story to anyone, mostly because I doubt they'd believe me even now. I never even learned his name. All I know is that there was a dying man in a townhouse, a place where my wife shared a life with him during their time together. That's all the information I need. There's no revenge to take on someone who's already passed, and I've come to accept that I can't forgive the woman who destroyed my trust. This concludes the story. If you like it, Then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.